Hello there and welcome to the FastMarkets Live Lounge, brought to you courtesy of Aquatech and recorded live here at the Lithium Supply and Battery Raw Materials Conference in Las Vegas. I'm Georgia Tolley, and with me is Madan Manoharan, who is CEO of Tuleva. Now, they're a Houston-based company that really focus on carbon neutral refining of critical materials. Madan is a seasoned entrepreneur whose career spans more than 2 decades across sectors including manufacturing, private equity, macro trading, and industrial innovation. Whether it's refining strategy or scaling operations, Madan brings a rare mix of financial insight and also hands-on leadership, really grounded in a vision of sustainability and long-term impact. Madan, thank you so much for joining us. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me here, Georgia.
Well, it's lovely to have you with us. I want to start at the beginning with you, with your career. It really does span quite a lot of interesting sort of fields, from trading, private equity, manufacturing, and now you're into refining critical materials.
Right.
I like it. What's the common thread that connects it all?
I don't know if there is a common thread per se, but it's more accretive, right? Because I didn't start out saying, okay, I'm going to do this, going to do that. But I started my first company when I was in 2001 from a technology that we licensed from NASA to produce flexible flat panel displays. And that's kind of like, my first foray into entrepreneurship, right? And we ended up selling the technology of the company to Xerox and moved forward. I was kind of burnt out after that. So decided to completely go to a different field. And that's how I got into finance. I started trading corporate bonds, futures and everything. But soon realized that was not where I belonged, because I was more of a operations person. Felt like a fish out of water in finance, especially doing what I was doing. But then decided that I wanted to get back into strategy and operations. And I wanted to also make sure that the experience I got from finance, I combined with operations, and that's how the PE firm came about. So for me, the beginning of the PE firm was intentional. Before that, it was, okay, I needed to do something different, right? So.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, you've obviously got a clear sense of purpose. And one of the great things about Tuleva is that it's built around this idea of being carbon neutral, so
right.
Carbon neutral refining. What's the sort of origin story for that? Why refining?
Right. That's a great question. So when we started the PE firm, one of the things that we wanted to do was really have impact on people, right? And that at that time, we felt that given the way things were laid out in the food industry, we would get into the food cold chain distribution, and that took us to Africa to do some work with the UN. And when we were doing that work is when we got to know this mining group that was looking for capital. And we didn't want to, this was COVID time, we didn't want to invest at that time in a mining operation. We are not mining people. We didn't understand that. But when I looked at lithium, it was different, right? Here we are trying to, at least at the PE firm, we are trying to make impact, which was localized. Here, with lithium, it provided an opportunity not only to make the community, have an impact on the community where lithium is being mined, but also a bigger impact on people, be it on the environment and also on the climate, right? So that was an impact that really, to me, meant a lot. And there was more purpose towards that. And I felt that is something that I needed to do. And that's how Tuleva was born.
So there's that sense of the big picture as well as the sort of close-up picture, because you're having a direct impact on the people involved in the mining, but then globally you're having an impact on the electrification and the sustainability picture as well.
Absolutely, right? Like Tuleva was born with really three core purpose in mind. Now, one is we want to make sure that we are making an impact on the carbon emission, right? But we didn't want to do that by really crashing the environment. And we wanted to make sure that our process was very clean, and that's one of the reasons why we are not using any acid-based extraction of what we are doing. We are a different type of extraction. And the third was there was always a sense of community, that we wanted to make sure that there was good impact on the community that we are going to be involved in, right? So those three things are at the core of what we try to do. All the decisions we make are around that core, and hopefully, we'll continue to do that and make sure that, we make some impact.
Is it always more expensive to be more sustainable, to be more eco-friendly?
I think that's a misconception. I truly believe that people who are trying to build businesses based on trying to get some kind of a premium pricing for being clean, green, whatever you want to call it, I think are misguided, because over the long run, that's not sustainable. You need to build a business where you can be competitive with the existing products, but yet be sustainable, right? And that's what we are doing. And it takes a different type of thinking in order for us to do that. It doesn't come very naturally, because if you're trying to optimize on certain things, then you might not have the best sustainable process in there. So you need to look at it from an overall perspective, a bigger perspective, in order for us to make sure that, yes, we might be spending a little higher here, but that is kind of being offset by gains somewhere else. So from the holistic perspective, we are still at parity on pricing, parity on pricing. So yeah.
You've obviously got a very entrepreneurial character. You're happy with the concept of risk and fast-moving markets. We can tell that from your previous career. Arguably, mining is your riskiest industry yet. Do you think your previous experiences have prepared you to be the CEO of a company in this sector?
I think when people talk about risk, they combine two things. One is uncertainty and one is risk. And I think when you're trying to combine those two and try to make decisions and make plans around it, usually it doesn't work. And for me, it's important to understand where uncertainty is and where risk is, right? There was a thesis that was written in 1921 by a gentleman by the name Frank Knight in the Chicago School, where he distinguished those two. And this is something I learned when I was in the finance world, where the concept of Knightian uncertainty was very meaningful as opposed to risk. Right. So to give you an example between the difference between the two, uncertainty is something that you don't know what is going to happen. Right. For example, tariff. You don't know what is going to happen. There's no history of certain things happening the way it is happening. It's all new territory. Right. Uncertainty always brings you opportunities. There is profit to be made there. And the way you deal with uncertainty is by having multiple options to deal with different trajectories it can go. On the other hand, risk is different. Let's say you are going to build a house. You're looking at a land which floods. There's going to be flooding. There's no other way around it. You either decide to build a house there or you go somewhere else. There's one or the other. If you decide to build a house in the flooded land, you have to deal with it. There is no way to mitigate that risk. But you have to, and that's why insurance is there, right? You have to deal with that risk. So when I look at this, given that there is so much uncertainty in the field because of multiple reasons, right? The technology is new, people are trying to bring in a completely new set of criteria for electrification into this, it's a huge opportunity. And as an entrepreneur, for me, that's what I thrive on, is trying to capitalize on opportunities and see where we can take the company. Yeah.
What do you think is the most common misconception when you talk about the lithium mining sector?
Lithium mining sector, I would say, the lithium space itself, right?
Yeah. So not just the mining, but the processing and the refining.
Right,
Yeah.
the entire supply chain, in there. I think, look, I started my career when, in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, when the telecom boom was big, right? I saw the analysts all make predictions on how the telecom industry is going to take and flourish and everything, and that kind of completely bust.
Yeah.
And then I saw how the ad revenue market in the internet, same thing, right? I kind of see the same thing happening in the lithium industry as well. Everything projecting all these kind of unbelievable projections. And when I looked at projections from 2021, 2022, I was just, man, the same thing was happening, what I saw. There's a great book that was written by a gentleman, Jeffrey Moore, called Crossing the Chasm, where he talks about how innovations permeate into the society. Right, so there are always early adapters, and then there is a big chasm that needs to be crossed in order to get into mass market adoption, right? And mass market is different from early adapters, right? Early adapters don't care for a lot of things. Mass market does care about a lot of things. So when you're making that transition, you need to retool your product to fit there. What I'm seeing is that the lithium space, especially in the battery side, it is coming into the early stages of mass market adoption. But people are still modeling based on early stage adoption, which is kind of completely not sync in with reality, right? But it will catch up. I think there are a few analysts who kind of are doing a little bit better job, not being so rosy, but it's good. Hey, if the rosy picture turns out, that's great. But I think we are building a company based on a lot more conservative projections. We truly believe that the transition in the US is going to be more first hybrid into BEVs, not a direct transfer, because we don't have the infrastructure for charging when you go outside the city. So there are a lot of things that needs to happen in order for the EV industry to go completely BEV, which might happen in the long run. But our view is it's going to go from where we are today to plug-in hybrids to BEV, which is great because we project the plug-in hybrids in the US are going to be much higher penetration than what the analysts are projecting, which means that the lithium uptake is going to be a lot more there, right? So we have a different way of looking at it, but let's see.
So it's all about perspective. I'll just mention that you can hear a bit of rattling of plates in the background. That's because it's nearly lunchtime here at the conference. So just in case if you're wondering about the noise in the background, that is what it is. We were talking about perspective, and from an operator's perspective, I'd like to know what you think real innovation looks like. There's a lot of people are throwing around quite a lot of buzzwords when, they say innovate this, innovate that. But what does it actually look like from a practical perspective, from an operator's point of view?
This conference is a classic example of a lot of technological innovation happening, right?
Yeah.
For me, as an operator, I think I start from the business side and see what are our goals on the business side and how do we tie up the innovation into the business side. What I mean by that is we know as a company that is going to be providing lithium chemicals to consumers, when I say consumers, a battery manufacturer, cam manufacturer, our downstream customers, we have to compete with China on pricing.
Yeah.
right? I'm not somebody who thinks that that's not going to be true. It's going to be true, right? Because at some point in time, price is going to be king. Wherever the cheapest pricing, people are trying to get it. The tariffs, there's going to be, that's all medium.
It might only be 4 years.
Right.
Let's be
who
honest.
knows? Who knows, right? Or even less than that. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But we got to build a business based on that, right? And the second thing is the nature of commodities is volatile. It's not unique to lithium. Look at the oil and gas. That's what happens. Look at corn. That's what happens. Because the problem is matching supply and demand in a heavy capital industry is really, really hard. When the prices are high, there's going to be more capital flowing in. They're going to set up the supply. There's going to be oversupply. There's going to depress pricing. It's a cycle that is unavoidable, right? From our point of view, the way we are thinking about this is, for us, our shareholders, eventually to have maximize their value, the value that we provide to our shareholders, we need to flatten out our revenue stream. So the only way we know how to do that, compete with China and do what we want to do with our shareholders, is to extract other minerals from the lithium ore. That's the reason why we are not going into the DLE space, because DLE can only do lithium, whereas we are a hard rock ore based refiner. We are able to extract aluminum and silicon along with lithium. We have in our process the ability to produce different types of lithium chemicals. So we are not necessarily married to the battery chemistry. It gives us the flexibility to do that. And also we can extract rubidium and cesium that are present in lepidolite. So our goal has been to make sure that we have as many byproducts as possible. Thereby, we amortize the cost across multiple products. Thereby, we can lower the cost of production for us and compete with China on cost, if need be. All right.
So. Is that a proprietary process?
Yes.
It's your own way of doing it.
Yes, it's our own way of doing it. Some of them has a long history of trying to extract what we are trying to do, and people have forgotten about it. And so we're going back, dusting up certain things.
Yeah.
People were not able to do certain things in those days because the materials, the equipment to make them were not available at that time. There were certain things that were very corrosive, way so it was not there. Now it's all there. So we're just going back and saying, okay, this was done. Let's think about this in a little bit different way and try to do it.
There's quite a lot of entrepreneurs looking to enter the market. I mean, not quite as many right now, maybe,
right.
But there certainly were about 3 years ago. And there's this sense that they may yet come back, and they may yet be listening to this podcast right now. So if you were to give any advice to people looking to enter the energy transition market, what would it be?
I think entrepreneurship is the same, doesn't matter what market you are in. To me, the biggest thing any entrepreneur needs to look out for is the biases we bring along with us. If you look at many of the successful entrepreneurs and VCs in general, they won't tell you this, but they prefer younger entrepreneurs to older entrepreneurs. It's primarily because the younger entrepreneurs don't have biases, right? Which means that they are willing to listen to multiple things, willing to do things that others, because of experience, might think is not doable, thereby constraining themselves to taking that step that is needed to really push yourself. And I think this is a field where experience does matter, but experience it's a handicap for entrepreneurs. And so you need to be really, really truthful to yourself. Understand that we all have biases. Behavioral economics has shown we are people with extreme biases, right? We need to check that as much as possible outside the gate and really listen to everything that people tell and really push in places where you feel there is uncertainty and profit to be made, not in places where risks are prevalent. So.
Okay, we've reached my final question.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the one that I ask everybody. What would you say your biggest takeaway will be from this conference? I know we've got a few days left, but if there was one sort of overarching takeaway, what would it be?
I've been to a conference or two in my career, and I think I've told this to FastMarket guys, like, this event planning team has been fantastic. I think they've been very intentional in trying to create a networking environment in this conference where, because of the nascency of this industry, people are willing to talk, right? But it doesn't happen if you don't intentionally make sure that people are able to, get together to have that conversation. I think what I'm getting out of this is a great industry where the people are very open to exchanging ideas, really are interested in figuring out the best path for the industry going forward. And even though it's kind of a little bit gloomy on the price side, I think people are here for the long run, which is the right view to have, in my opinion, in any commodity based industry, which I consider lithium to be one of them. So.
Madan, thank you very much indeed. What an absolutely fascinating conversation. Really, really interesting to hear your viewpoints and your sort of ideas around entrepreneurialism. It was really, really fascinating interview. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you to everyone who's listening to this vodcast right here at the event. It's a great pleasure to have everyone listening at home as well. If you want to see more episodes of the FastMarkets Live Lounge, then you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, basically, whether that's Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, whatever platform you prefer. Huge thanks, of course, to our sponsors, Aquatech, and huge thanks to you guys for tuning in. If you'd like to engage with us, if you'd like to watch the highlights, we are present on all of the socials. So just check us out there, and you can follow, and even comment. But first and foremost, thank you very much indeed for listening. Thank you for watching.